the route that I took at Baylor. You know, I was interested in being a physician, but I didn't want to have the typical pre-medical education that people have. You know, they just go take their pre-medical classes and then take the other classes that are just in the back burner. When I applied to Baylor, I saw that there was an honors program called the Baylor Interdisciplinary Core. And so what they did was, instead of you taking, you know, your basic religion and literature, history, et cetera, classes, they mashed them up all together. So I took classes with the titles of world cultures or world of rhetoric, things like that. And so I was exposed to these texts like the Ramayana, the Epic of Gilgamesh. I was reading or reading up on art history, things like Rembrandt, just things that I was never even consider. Um, and I actually really owe it to Angel, because if I hadn't met him and he hadn't, you know, exposed me to the idea that you can just learn more from, you know, disciplines that aren't necessarily going to be your focus, and, you know, apply those to you know, your career or your passion, it definitely makes you a more well-rounded person. And so that's what I took those classes. And um, I wasn't involved in activism at the time at Baylor, because I was really just trying to survive when I got there. I really didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to take these advanced classes, and so it was very much, you know, learned by trial by fire. But I definitely expanded my mind. It opened my mind in a sense, and it prepared me very well for medical school. And so I've seen myself participate more in activism in medical school now that I actually set up that foundation for myself to be more mindful, for myself to look at these, you know, these topics that are just that we debate upon frequently, and not necessarily think of them from the traditional routes, but to step back and look at the idea as a whole and say, okay, how can I tackle this idea from a different perspective? How can I see this from the perspective of, say, a female Pakistani woman, rather than from the 25-year-old Mexican American man that I am? How does this look from the perspective of an LGBTQ community member? How does this look from the perspective of an African American college student? And so, you know, I always try to bring back the lessons that I learned from the Baylor Interdisciplinary Core, and place them into the current events, because I do think that it's important to not just necessarily think from your perspective, or to think from the perspective of others. And that, I think, that helps you connect with the communities that you either serve or that you coexist with. If that helps answer your question. In regards to mentorship, what I've realized, and one of my best friends in medical school had to actually literally say it for me, is that mentorship isn't necessarily always going to be one individual for the rest of your life, but rather a series of individuals that may not be constant. So, you know, Angel was my mentor throughout high school. I met him when I was 15, and then I kept in touch with him my first and second year, and then I kind of fell off the boat a little bit because I was involved with more scientific studies, more science classes. But then, you know, Dr. Erica Abel became my mentor. She was the head of the biochemistry department, my biochemistry professor. And then Dr. I'm forgetting her name, Dios mío. Bueno, multiple professors started to mentor me. And that's when I realized that even these people who had absolutely nothing in common with me, because these were white women, middle-aged white women, like we come from completely different backgrounds, but they took the time out of their day to say, hey, this is what you need to do to apply to medical school. Hey, this is what you need to do to be successful in your career. This is because I didn't even have a suit to interview to medical school, and Dr. Abel went out of her way to give me money to buy a suit from Men's Warehouse, you know. And so mentorship can look, you know, in very different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, this is what you need to do. It can be, oh, this is how you can think, or this is, hey, this is these are the steps you need to take. These are the ways you can approach problems, you know. It definitely looks different for every individual.
Okay.
I wanted to add a couple of things, if I could.
Please.
I really didn't speak on the mentorship piece. I did not have a mentor growing up, and it wasn't until I got older that I wish I did. But I will say, I found one in Dr. Thomas Freeman. I think it'd be an injustice not to bring him up in this section. He he was the first man that I met who was interested in my own development as a human being, and he saw potential in me. You know, I've had relatives that care about your safety, you know, but in terms of being a straight up mentor, and pulling me to the side regularly and just telling, giving me critiques on how I'm doing, that was Dr. Freeman. I was with the team for about 10 years, 4 years as a student, 6 years as a coach. And he breathed life into me in many ways. And I wanted to add with Jonathan, he probably doesn't want to toot his own horn, but he organized the Black Lives Matter protests in the Rio Grande Valley amongst the Latino Medical Students Association. And he really just took it upon himself and spearheaded it. And, stuff like that makes me proud, even though I know I didn't do it or anything like that. But it's like you see this kid and you kind of see what they're capable of. And then, he gives a call to, hey, man, I'm thinking about doing this protest. What do you think? And I'm just like, go for it, And then he does it, and stuff like that to me is significant.
Right. And I think that's how mentorship can look like. It's in different ways. Miss Anya, please jump in also, because I know we mentioned Dr. Freeman and we can't not mention Dr. Freeman in all this. I only had the pleasure of having one amazing conversation with him, but just his office with the trophies and just his stories, it was just amazing just having those 5 minutes with him.
Yeah, I don't know that I have much more than what Angel said. Other than just, in speaking to mentorship and how I hope to be one, there are quite a few, I guess, young doulas or newer doulas to be, who look to me to help them. And one of the things I can say about Dr. Freeman is, so the first time I even knew about Dr. Freeman was because I took his philosophy class. And so on the first day of class, he did not show up, but he left instructions for us to sign in and, there were instructions for what books to buy, sign in. And then he told us, we had to sign in at the debate office. And so it just told you what room to go to. And then when I walked in, I was just, automatically mesmerized at just seeing so much history on the walls, outside of the office, inside of the office, all of the trophies. But one of the things that taught me is that, there was no announcement, there was no grand from Dr. Freeman, I will be your mentor and I will take you places. He just pulled you in and it was there for the taking if you chose. And I think that's one of the things that I've looked for in people that I see as mentors, that I can look to for my own mentorship. Like I said, even if I don't establish a direct relationship there. And it's something that I also hope to carry in being a mentor myself, that people see my actions, that people hear my words and will understand my heart and follow the example of the work that I do. And, just knowing that is also, it's also a very valid form of mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely. And I think that's, and it sounds like that all these different experiences that you've had as undergrads have kind of, I guess, shaped and helped you continue on the work that you do or evolve it. Like Ms. Anya, like you said, you're now a doula. So I think what I want to kind of try to show students is there's a starting point with being active on campus and activism, and then just seeing, especially from my experience at an HBCU and just being part of Sigma Lambda Beta and my own histories, just seeing how all that continues to shape who I am today and what I do, and how everything's kind of geared towards helping others and being in the community and knowing the community I work with and serve. So for Angel, for yourself, how do you see your experiences at TSU kind of shape what you're doing now?
I think in many ways, I kind of going back to Dr. Freeman. It's weird when you don't realize all he was teaching you until you're using it, and you're like, oh, you know what to do in certain situations, and you're like, how did I? You're like, oh, okay, oh, wow. And that's kind of what he would do, is just put you in these scenarios like social math problems, basically, and you figure it out.
Yep, that's
And
exactly.
and basically the type of person you are would be how you respond, and also if you continue to come back and learn more complex math problems, social math problems. But I think I keep going back to even though I didn't continue in political science, the way the climate is now, it makes me remember a lot that I learned, and especially in terms of the long game. Like when we were in college, we did a lot of the protests for the DREAM Act for undocumented migrants, and it seemed like some small victories back then, and now here we are, over a decade later, and you have kids in cages. So it shows you it's not like oh, we got that done, put it to the side, move on to the next. It's a constant push and pull, and that's kind of what I wish more people would realize in terms of understanding the long game and committing yourself to public service. I think that's what TSU put in me more than anything is really just a commitment, believing the idea of America, United States, and really wanting to put in service. And there's more ways of putting in service than just the military. I'm a public servant. I work for a government agency, and I believe in the work that we do. And I know the work that we do is needed. And I know for a fact I picked that up at Texas Southern because I didn't really think about it much before then. And I didn't really feel ownership of anything. And I think going through university at TSU, it kind of gives you that, like, wait a minute, we are from here and we do have a place here. We need to just carve our spot out and put in the work and contribute and help others. And I think that's also why I like to mentor, because I didn't really have mentors. But when you coach debate so many years, you just get into the groove of figuring out who's good at what. And it's actually a part of our core values in social work. You got to figure out people's strengths. So you kind of see things in people when you see how pieces fit together and these more social math problems. And I think I learned all of that starting at Texas Southern.
Definitely. No, that's everything that I've learned so far, because I've always learned the history of the area, but now that I'm really immersed in it, and just knowing that TSU is just the epicenter of all the social activism that's gone through the city.
Oh yeah.
Students need to just know, like, be aware of the history because they're part of it now. And it's just, like you said, a long game. I know for yourself, Jonathan, I know you are in medical school, and personally, if I can just be frank, I went to the DeBakey High School for Health Professions, so I was on that medical track until I got the teaching bug. But I did like a high school interview for medical school, and I kind of know how medical schools kind of look at everything. And I just want to commend you, because I feel like your patient care is probably like bar none 100% amazing, probably, because you seem very connected.
Yeah.
And how does